Yeah. So, Tim, let's talk Academy Award nominations.
Yeah.
The 91st Academy Awards. We are 9 years away from the 100th Academy Awards.
Which seems like is going to be a hostless Academy Award.
It will be. It will
so
be.
that's going to be interesting. The nominations, though, I have two complaints. We'll talk about those later.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the things that I'm perfectly happy about. Happy about Black Panther and Black Klansman and Spike.
Yeah.
Happy about
Spike's first ever directing nomination. And he got a screenplay nomination as well.
Happy about Roma.
Yeah.
Interesting nominations in both categories, foreign and Best Picture. Has that ever happened before?
Yeah. So, film. It is the fifth film to be nominated in both Best Foreign Language category and the Best Picture category, and all four previous films did not win Best Picture, but they did win Best Foreign Language film, and it is the 10th. Let me think of what the other statistic is. It's the 10th foreign film to be nominated for Best Picture.
Mm-hmm.
So 10 foreign films have been nominated for Best Picture. 5 of them also nominated the same year in Best Foreign. None of them have won Best Picture. So no foreign language film has ever won Best Picture. The only foreign-made film outside of British films that has won Best Picture is The Artist.
Yeah.
But they're all, like the other, like Hamlet, I think was the first non-American film to win Best Picture. And then obviously there's Chariots of Fire and Gandhi. And, a lot of other, a fair number of British films have won, Man for All Seasons, right? A fair number of British films have won Best Picture. But yeah, it's an uphill climb for Roma. It's the most nominated foreign language film since Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, which got 10 nominations as well.
The concern is that the Academy voters, having nominated for both Best Foreign and Best Picture, will simply default to Best Foreign.
Yeah.
And which means that it definitely will not win Best Picture, which of course is unfair to all of the other films in the Best Foreign category. You might not necessarily be being fair to the movie, to Roma. When you do that.
We do a thing in LAFCA, which I think is very fair, which is every year there's a discussion before we vote, which is, hey, do we have any documentaries, animated films, or foreign language films that could be legitimate contenders for Best Picture?
Straight up.
And then
which we gave to Roma.
Which we gave to Roma, right? So and because Roma won Best Picture, we voted the other award afterwards. We wanted to give those films a chance to win Best Picture, at which point we then will vote the other awards. So we don't wait till the end to do Best Picture. And I think that's fair, because we don't want a film to take both. If it wins Best Picture, okay, now another foreign language film. This year we gave it to Burning. Burning got Best Foreign Language Film. Roma got Best Picture. And I kind of wish the Academy would make some arrangement in the same way. And I don't know how they could, because their voting isn't the same as ours. But it would be nice if there were a way of saying, animated documentary, foreign language films that have a real chance of getting, once they're nominated, we will, maybe what you do is that, you tabulate the votes, and if those films get nominated for Best Picture, then you remove it from the other category, and whatever came in sixth moves up.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Maybe you do something like that.
I don't know. It's a difficult sort of thing. I like the notion of sort of denationalizing these categories. A Best Picture ought to be a Best Picture. Should make any difference what language is being spoken.
True.
One of the things that has hurt foreign language cinema in America, in North America anyway, over the last 25 or 30 years, I think has been that sort of categorizing of things like that.
True.
And we simply stopped talking about movies as movies. The way we used to, even in the 90s.
That's what's nice about film festivals, is that you have these juries. When you go to Cannes or to Venice or whatever, or Berlin, you have these juries that are comprised of people from all over the globe. It'll be an American director and a German film critic and a Japanese producer and a Senegalese actress, right? And you suddenly you have this really eclectic mix of people, and the fun part there is that nobody says, "Ooh, I wonder what the best film will be." The fun part is you look at that group of people and you go, what an amazing, I wonder what they'll agree on. Right?
And it might very well be anything.
You never know.
From a Lars von Trier film to a Quentin Tarantino film, depending on what year it is.
So
in language and whatnot, it just simply doesn't matter. Black Klansman did well.
I think the last 2 years, this whole new Academy class that has come in, it's much more international. And so it may be more inclined to vote for something like Roma, but
as Best Picture, straight up.
But I don't think it's still, like 1,500 non-English native speakers in the Academy compared to 9,000 mostly Americans and a few Brits and Australians. I don't think is going to make that much of a dent. However, running down it, The Favorite and Roma tied with 10 nominations apiece. A Star is Born got 8. It got exactly all 8 nominations I expected it to get, minus the one I thought it would get, which is Bradley Cooper for director.
Interesting.
That it did not get. Vice also got 8, which surprises me.
That's about 5 too many.
Yeah. Black Panther with 7.
Yeah, solid. Although Ryan Coogler not nominated. That makes
or Michael B. Jordan.
And Michael B. Jordan. That's one of my big issues. We'll talk about it when we get there.
Black Klansman nominated in every category I expected it to get, except for Best Actor.
Yeah. Well,
that was a bit of a surprise to me. Bohemian Rhapsody got 5. That's about 1 more than it deserves.
I
maybe
think
2.
4 more than it deserves.
4 more.
Rami Malek was fine. Everything else we don't really.
And as a pause here, The Atlantic, we should mention The Atlantic just ran with a 2-year researched blockbuster piece on Bryan Singer that is definitely in Harvey Weinstein territory, and it is heavily surpasses it. Yeah. It's heavily sourced and researched and legally vetted, and man, is it a rough read. It's a rough read. The question is, will that, because no one even mentioned him at the Golden Globes, even though the film won.
He had to mention himself.
Yeah. So will that hurt Rami Malek?
No, it will not accrue to him. It will accrue to all those other categories.
Yeah, I agree.
Rami is liked in and of himself, and he gave a great performance. And I think that but those other categories, it's going to hurt it there.
And then we also with 5 nominations is Green Book. And
that's actually 5 too many.
Yeah, and right below that is a bunch of stuff that has no chance of taking anything at all, except for Beale Street, which has 3, which could get score and probably should get score.
I do not understand 10 slots. 8 nominations, not Beale Street. I just don't understand that.
Didn't hit the threshold.
And I know there's a math thing that goes on.
There is. You have to get so many votes of a certain yada, yada, yada percentage, right? There's like an algorithm that determines it. And I've said it from the beginning. I think Beale Street is it's a Bertolucci film. Yeah. It's very European.
But it will. All Barry's films.
But
all Barry's
Beale Street will win 2. It'll win 2 awards. It'll win 2 of its 3. It's going to win. It's going to win supporting actress, and it's going to win.
Regina King
probably win score. Probably, but not certainly.
Not certainly. A couple others. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, Mary Queen of Scots and Cold War and Can You Ever Forgive Me, which is a lovely 3. I mean, that's should have probably gotten a few more. Bow to Buster Scruggs. Those are the ones that aren't going to really do much. They're just going to kind of sit there. So, but you know what? At this point, I got to be honest. I'm feeling like Green Book is the odds-on favorite to win. It doesn't deserve it.
It doesn't deserve it. I mean, what did John Powers?
John Powers. We're calling John Powers of what does he write for now? Vogue. He's writing for Vogue. John Powers of Vogue. He said it's the most daring film of 1965.
It still makes me laugh.
Well, because it's basically a Sidney Poitier movie.
Oh, sure, it's a Sidney Poitier movie.
But it's
driving Miss Daisy and a certain.
It pushes the same buttons as The Help and Hidden Figures. Here's why I think it's likely to win, and I didn't think so originally because it just felt so. It felt like that. It felt so formulaic and so calculated and so kind of. Arduously politically correct.
Particularly when juxtaposed to a movie like Black Panther and Black Klansman at the exact same moment in history. Although Driving Miss Daisy was juxtaposed to Do the Right Thing at that exact same moment in history.
And the thing is, I thought this is just like white liberal guilt bending over backwards in a cheery buddy movie, and it ends like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. You literally turn Don Shirley and Mahershala Ali into John Candy at the end of that movie.
Steve,
you do. And I'm sorry, this is a spoiler. Turn it off for about 10 seconds. But it's like, here he is. He's all alone. Won't you come and have dinner with us? Oh, thank you. Now
and
I
then
got
there are
a
a couple of
family.
actually objectionable moments in the movie.
When
he takes him down there and introduces him to the black music.
Yeah.
Look, this is the music of your people.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So, but you know what? I keep meeting people who say, I loved it.
I know plenty of them. My mother-in-law, my mother.
And so it just feels to me like, the Academy clearly, when we look at the Best Picture nominees, all 8 of those films, it's a really interesting mix because it's the first year in a long time where I feel like everything diverges radically from the Spirit Awards. And if you remember the year that for like the past decade probably, those two have been moving closer and closer together.
And particularly in terms of the very specific indie selections, Beast of the Southern Wild, and all these little Winter's Bone, all these. They were on a very similar indie path.
And Black Panther, Black Klansman, Bohemian Rhapsody, The Favorite, Green Book, Roma, A Star Is Born, and Vice. There is not
movies.
A single movie there that will be nominated for a Spirit Award.
No.
Not one.
No.
And the movies from the Spirit Awards are not showing up here.
No.
Really. The Deborah Granick film, Paul Schrader's film.
Boy Erased.
Boy Erased.
Beautiful Boy. None of the little indies.
Destroyer, right?
No Nicole Kidman on that list.
No Nicole Kidman. That whole class of indies is shut out from the Oscars this time in a very interesting way. I thought, okay, that's really interesting. That's really super interesting because what that means is the Academy is very aware of the fact suddenly that they've been nominating films that nobody has seen and nobody will ever see, and they're not going to get ratings out of them. So I think there is suddenly this awareness for change. We better nominate some studio films. And boom, there you go. You've got, you look at this rundown, Warner Brothers, Universal, 20th Century Fox, Walt Disney, 4 of the 8 films are big studio films.
It's like the 1965 Academy Awards.
Yeah. And then you got Annapurna for Vice and Focus for Black Klansman, and then 2 from Netflix. But that's really, really interesting to me.
But even those films have A-list elements. Christian Bale in Vice, A-list element, and I mean a number of A-list elements, but certainly Christian. And Spike Lee, being the director of Black Klansman, A-list element. These are not Deborah. Again, you mentioned Deborah Granick directed Winter's Bone a few years ago,
and then she did this year. It's
Without a Trace.
Without a Trace,
which is a very good movie. Ben Foster.
Yeah.
But we were talking about this movie, but no. And so as good a movie as Winter's Bone, but not this year. Not this year. I don't think there'll ever be any Beast of the Southern Wilds again.
Probably not for a while at least. Now the other thing I think that weighs against Roma is that it was done by Netflix, and Roma had kind of an interesting theatrical release, at least initially, which was you could only see it Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and then Netflix pulled it on Thursday through Sunday because if people are going to have a movie watching thing on the weekend, they want you watching it on Netflix. If people insist on going to a theater to see it because Netflix hates theaters, well, then fine, do it on a Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday with the rest of you cinephiles, and we're not losing too much by way of traffic, which I think is a very cynical thing to do, and I think a lot of people will resent that. So I think people will probably give it Best Director, give Cuarón his second Best Director.
See, that's the thing that this film has going. People like.
Yeah.
Cuarón. People like him. They actually like him.
That's it. You honor Cuarón without honoring Netflix.
Yeah. Look, man, we've been talking about this in the Tomato Slam. I think we're going to be putting up here in a minute or so. That begins with the notion that we are actually seeing the fundamental metamorphosis of the film, the movie business, the film business as we know it.
I don't know where it lands, and I don't know where it lands. I really don't.
I think. Well, Netflix has got it by the balls right now, man. They made the folks at Cannes mad. I guess it was last year they made them mad. bad because they did the screenings. And
Yeah.
the can stopped it, so it said, "Well, we're not going to show your movies here, right? We're not going to show them." And Netflix says, "Well, you know what? We don't really give a fuck."
Well,
and now they have these Academy Award. And they win. I think they win. This is what winning looks like.
So let's run through some of the major categories real quickly. Leading actor, who do you think is going to win?
Run down the list.
Christian Bale, Bradley Cooper, Willem Dafoe, Rami Malek, and Viggo Mortensen.
People like Rami, but I think it might be Bradley's consolation prize for not getting that Best Director's nomination. And he's also a liked person. I'm going to say that a lot, folks, because a lot of this has to do with whether or not you are liked.
Oh, that's it. Absolutely. And that's also why I think Green Book stands a good chance of winning, because with the preferential ballot, where you're not just saying, I want this one to win, but where you're saying, well, this is my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then there's this, again, the algorithm again, which tends to result in picture director splits more often than not. I think the film that typically wins now is the one that is least hated, as opposed to the one that's most liked. So I think Green Book is the one that is least hated. But I think Rami Malek still has it. Supporting actor, where we got Mahershala Ali, the first Best Actor to actually be in a supporting category. I mean, seriously, come on. He's nominated as a supporting actor in his own movie. Yeah. It's not about the chauffeur.
It's just the white dude is driving the brother. That makes the brother the star of the movie.
It's crazy.
Never mind.
Adam Driver in BlacKkKlansman, Sam Elliott in The Star is Born, Richard E. Grant, Can You Ever Forgive Me, and Sam Rockwell in Vice.
Nobody saw Richard E. Grant in that movie, Can You Ever Forgive Me, which is unfortunate. I have to say, the person not nominated is Michael B. Jordan for Black Panther playing Killmonger. I think there's a prejudice there that has to do with the nature of that movie, big old Marvel action movie. But even as I say that, I point out that we gave Heath Ledger that posthumous Oscar for playing the Joker.
True.
In that Batman movie.
Yeah.
So I reject that notion that it's because he's in a Marvel movie. No. Unless he had to die or something. Yeah. And I'm sorry, you could not have watched Black Panther without seeing this guy playing this movie to Shakespearean proportions. He's playing Richard III,
and also not exactly a villain. He has a point of view.
So
he's not just trying to destroy the universe.
Yeah, which goes back to that screenplay. So he's not nominated here. So whatever. I don't know.
Sam Elliott.
Sam Elliott's an old man.
Sam Elliott married Catherine Ross.
Yeah.
Done.
Stayed married to her forever.
That's why you give him this award. And he's great in the movie too. But
the performances I like the best is Adam Driver in BlacKkKlansman. So understated, so easy breezy. I really preferred that.
Those are definitely my two favorites. Actress in a leading role: Yalitza Aparicio, Glenn Close, Olivia Colman, Lady Gaga, and Melissa McCarthy.
The Glenn Close nomination, I'm sorry, I just don't get that. The Melissa McCarthy nomination, no, I'm sorry, just walking around with that little bob, being mean. I can still see you, Melissa. Yeah. I can still see you, Melissa. And people are going all goofy about Lady Gaga's performance. But you know what? I've been to a Lady Gaga performance concert. Kind of the same chick.
Yeah.
Kind of the same chick. I feel like I want to give it to Yalitza Aparicio. I know nothing of her as an actress.
She's very different from how she is in the movie.
She got me. She got me whole and complete. So there you go.
I'm going with Olivia Colman.
Yeah.
Supporting actress Amy Adams for Wearing a Wig, Marina de Tavira in Roma, Regina King, Emma Stone, and Rachel Weisz going to cancel each other out for The Favorite. I think Regina King walks away with that, not even blinking. Ever since 227, she has been on people's TV screens and movie screens. That girl is she's the hardest working actress for 30 years.
She is the James Brown of actresses in Hollywood, and she's damn good in that movie.
I interviewed her at a million years ago. It was a million years. I don't even want to count. A million years ago for when Stella got her groove back. Mm-hmm. And she's like she's down the line on that cast, and she was so grateful. And I remember even after the interview, a lot of the press people were hanging out outside waiting for their cars, and she was out with them, not hiding like actors often do at junkets, right? She was out there, and it was a chance to sort of talk to her off the record, off the grid a little bit. and just so sweet and so gracious and so grateful to have a career. So aware of the fact that she was blessed that she could earn a living doing this. That was like 30 years ago, man. That was about 25 years ago. But
she killed it in John Singleton's second movie, Poetic Justice.
Poetic Justice, yeah.
Opposite Tupac Shakur. Playing Janet Jackson's little ghetto girlfriend.
That's how long.
And I'm watching that movie. I did that junk. And I'm watching the movie, and I'm deep in that movie. And I suddenly realized, wait a minute, that's the kid from 227.
I know.
She played that little sweet kid on 227.
She
just was amazing.
And she's just always been the other person in the cast.
Yeah.
The second person, the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth. She's never, this is her moment. She finally gets.
And
to
by the
own
way,
it.
look up her directing credits. She directs all the time. Good, top end. I promise you. If you're watching high-end television, streaming or otherwise, you've been watching Regina King direct. She's really figured it out, and I couldn't be happier. And I think she's going to win that one, too. Where else?
A few others. Let's see. Directing, Spike Lee, Pavel Pawlikowski for Cold War, Yorgos for The Favorite, that lunatic who made me finally like one of his movies, Cuarón and Adam McKay. Dude, Cuarón's going to walk away with that. Unless they are terrified of what Spike will say if they don't give it to him. The Spike intimidation factor could carry the way, but I think Cuarón will end it because what can Spike say about Cuarón?
Well,
They're friends.
What's
They're
funny to me is Ryan Coogler again not nominated, and had he been nominated, then I would have voted for Ryan over Spike. I would have.
That's interesting.
Also not nominated, Barry Jenkins for Beale Street.
But he already won a Best Picture.
He already won one, a Best Picture. But had he been nominated, I would have also voted for him. So there are at least 2 black and 1 Mexican director that I would have voted for, because I actually would vote for Cuarón. I would give it to him. He did the best directing job. Putting that film together and making it as poetic as it actually is, as beautiful as it actually is, and still having
call for me.
Tell that story.
I'm not a huge Roma fan, but I respect what he did in it. Not a huge Yorgos fan, but he made me love that movie. But Pavel Pawlikowski and Spike did really, really good work. It's a tough call. I wish Bradley Cooper were there. He'd be my pick. He'd be my guy.
There you go. That's why I think he might get that acting. I think that, although these are different branches of the Academy that don't really have anything to do with each other.
And then last couple here. So writing. Let's go down to the screenplay nominations and adapted screenplay. Buster Scruggs for the Coen Brothers, Black Klansman, Can You Ever Forgive Me, Beale Street, and Star Is Born.
Beale Street is just absolutely exquisite to my ear.
Yeah. Preserves that novel in a beautiful way.
Yeah, you can hear the Baldwin in it, but it still, it somehow still rings as contemporary. So that's where I would go.
I think this is weird because there are 2 films here, Star Is Born and Black Klansman, that are nominated for Best Picture. But I still feel like Can You Ever Forgive Me is going to win. And the reason being, I think people feel like they want to give Nicole Holofcener an award.
And it's good writing.
It's really good writing.
Because she has to write as good as Lee Israel without the Lee Israel.
And original screenplay, The Favorite, First Reformed, Green Book, Roma, and Vice. And I think Black Klansman could win here. I think they could give it to Spike if they don't give him directing to get him off their backs. But anyway, The Favorite, First Reformed, Green Book, Roma, and Vice. What wins original there?
The Favorite.
Yeah, it should. But I'm afraid Green Book will.
Oh man! I hope not. I mean, that would just be ludicrous.
Peter Farrelly
it shouldn't even be nominated.
Peter Farrelly and Nick Vallelonga walking up to pick up an Oscar would just kill me.
Well, they got a little baggage. Peter does anyway.
Yeah, that's true. But Paul Schrader could win as well.
Yeah, and First Reformed also, to be honest with you, Ethan Hawke ought to be nominated right now for that performance. He should. So, anyway, more complaints tonight.
Well, The Favorite, this is what would be really, really interesting if The Favorite and if Can You Ever Forgive Me both win, because those are the only 2 writing nominations for women, and they're both co-writing, but they are the 2 who wrote the original drafts of those 2 scripts. And Deborah Davis, who wrote the first draft of The Favorite, first-time screenwriter 20 years ago, read books on how to write a screenplay, because she just felt this story had to be told, and it took 20 years to finally make it. And there's a wild and crazy 20-year success story.
You know, that's why you got to hang in there, man.
Got to hang in there, man. All right. So with that, let's we've spent 25 minutes.
Did we do Best Picture? We did.
We did. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I think Green Book's going to take it, but I hope it doesn't. I'd love to see Star is Born still get it. I thought Star is Born would be the odds-on favorite, but it apparently hasn't been. So anyway, I'm gonna blow through some PBS stuff real quick. Then we'll get to some new movies, and then we got a whole lot of classic stuff.
What's your favorite film of the year, though? That wasn't
The Favorite.
The Favorite was your favorite.
Yeah,
film of the year.
yeah, The Favorite. Look, if The Favorite won, I'd lose my mind. But I look, I'm a realist. I know how to prognosticate these things. I don't see that anywhere on the charts.
Yeah,
It's not the least hated film. My wife was, thought it was okay.
I loved it.
I love it too. But
I
it's
love the
very,
writing. It's
very divisive. And films that are divisive don't get enough number 2 and number 3 votes. They'll get a lot of 1s and a lot of 8s.
And there we go with the math again.
Right.
That process. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So PBS. Let me just burn through this cool bunch of PBS stuff. We got one PBS Blu-ray from the Nature series and BBC Earth Super Cats. No reason really to call this Super Cats. All cats are super.
Yeah.
But this is really fun. This is 3 episodes on cats, and I'm a cat person, not necessarily a dog person, but I'm married to a dog person. So you get to watch about 2 hours and 40 minutes here of just a lot of cats, and I love cats. Wild cats, house cats, big cats, small cats. They're all kitties. They're all kitties, and they're all cute, and they're all adorable, and they do what they want. Lynxes and jaguars and snow leopards and house cats and tabbies and everything else. It's really great, and it's great on Blu-ray. And they go to 600. They go over the course of 600 days. They visit 14 different countries and look at 31 different species of cats, and it is really, really beautifully shot, and it's a lot of fun. We have also got from PBS Breaking Big. This is an interesting thing. This is about people who are quote-unquote influencers. And if you don't know what influencers are, these are... Well, typically influencers are people like who have so many blue check... Well, they have a blue check on Twitter, so they start taking pictures of all the soft drinks that they drink, and they get a check. They get a check for all the millions of people.
I do not understand how you don't have a blue check.
I don't either. I haven't pursued it. But this is about people who are more than just blue check influencers. This is about people who actually have... who have risen to a significant level of success in the society, and how they were able to break in and rise and so forth. And you could pick any. I mean, you could shovel this with 150,000 different people, and it would still be really interesting. You almost want them to make a series out of this, but the ones they've chosen are very, very interesting. Trevor Noah, for example. Gretchen Carlson, former news anchor on Fox News and a former beauty queen. Lee Daniels, Academy Award-winning writer-director and TV producer. Kirsten Gillibrand, who just announced, her presidential run, senator from New York. Michael Strahan, football player turned TV personality, right? Yep. So I mean, all these, it's a really wide array of people, but they all have a really interesting story. Mm-hmm. They all have a story about what they did to get where they are and how they broke through certain barriers, and it's really, really interesting. So it's called Breaking Big. Again, you could make this about any group of people, and it would be just as interesting. And it's hosted by Carlos Watson, who's himself a distinguished journalist.
It sounds like a repeatable series to me.
It should be. You should have one. You should have like 3 or 4 of those every year.
Yeah.
It should be like an American experience kind of a thing. Secrets of Britain's Great Cathedrals. I don't know if there are secrets. It's not like, here we are at, and we've just discovered that there's an ancient scroll that reveals the secret to time travel. We've just found it in the basement. There are no secrets. It's just sort of statistics and honoring them and looking at them. And they go to 20 different cathedrals and abbeys, and it is beautifully shot. I wish it were on Blu-ray, but it's not. It's on DVD, but they shot it in 4K, so it's very nice looking. But if you like cathedrals, you'll love it. If you hate them, you'll have absolutely no attraction to it. Poetry in America, Season 1. Wonderful. I'm glad they're doing this. American poetry is such a distinguished and vast and fascinating field because it's sort of our history through poetry. You go to other countries, France, Germany, England, and poetry doesn't really sort of define the history. There's a style, there's a national style of poetry, but our poetry changes every 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
And it's really, really interesting. They have so anyway, the episodes here focus very specifically on individual poems. Everything from I Cannot Dance Upon My Toes by Emily Dickinson to The New Colossus by Emma Lazarus, which is on the Statue of Liberty, to Harlem by Langston Hughes, to Him and Hum Bomb by Allen Ginsberg, which is like pulling teeth with me.
I'm more of a Howl kind of guy.
Yeah.
You don't care for those.
Skyscraper by Carl Sandburg, Musée de Beaux-Arts by W.H. Auden, an amazing poet. New York State of Mind by Naz. It's just it's everything from the last 200 years. It's really, really interesting. Then we've got The Circus, Big Tent, Big Dreams. This is an American Experience documentary. It is formidable. It is 4 hours, and it gives you the complete history of the circus. And it is so much more interesting than you would think. The socio-political role of the circus, especially here in the 19th century version of it in the United States, is so extraordinary. It's really just it's dazzling, and how it sort of plugs into the culture and how it evolves with the culture. This is 4 riveting hours that you are just not going to believe. It goes into personalities you've never heard of, not just P.T. Barnum and Ringling Brothers and Bailey, the ones whose names we're familiar with. There are people you never heard of, you had no idea, who are central to the circus becoming a thing. Milestones of a Spiritual Life, Sacred. This is really quite interesting. This is primarily a production of WNET in New York, and as you know, a lot of different networks in the PBS under the PBS umbrella tend to do their own productions. And this takes a look at what is sacred in the world in different cultures and different places, and tries to sort of get inside why there is so much. If everybody wants peace and wants holiness, why is everybody always fighting over it? Why is there so much sectarian bloodshed? And it's directed by Academy Award winning documentarian Thomas Lennon, and it's very, very, very good. It's only 90 minutes long, could probably be longer, but it's very impressively made, and it doesn't really give you any conclusions. It doesn't sort of say this is what we can do. Yay, we've solved the world's problems, but it's provocative. Frontline, always impressive, did the Facebook Dilemma, and this will continue to be timely because Facebook's dilemma is far from over. As we all know, Facebook continues to face all kinds of problems in terms of, are they infiltrated? Are they allowing themselves to be used as some kind of manipulation by foreign powers? Do they censor speech? Do they favor some over others? Or do they improperly take your privacy and target you
and sell it?
If you're going to do that, you owe me a check.
Yeah.
Let me just tell you, you owe me a check. All these questions, and we all use the damn thing, but it is definitely in a crisis place, and it's in a lot of people's crosshairs, especially politicians. So they did a really great job at Frontline of just kind of exploring all of that. And again, that is a far from over situation. No Passport Required with Marcus Samuelsson, exploring America through the culture of food. That is a dangerous thing to do. Because there is so much bad food in America. There's a lot of wonderful food. Most of American food has some kind of cultural roots from somewhere else. Europe and South America and the Caribbean and Polynesia, and everybody kind of brought their cuisines here, and it all gets mixed up, and that's how you wind up with pineapple on pizza and gumbo and I don't know. Halal spaghetti and herring in your calzone and who knows what.
Korean Tex-Mex.
Yeah, it's all terrifying. But some of it's really, really good. So this is interesting. Marcus Samuelsson does a wonderful job taking you on your journey through all the different cuisines, and most of it is in New York, where every 3 blocks you've got a different ethnic neighborhood and a different ethnic cuisine, and it's amazing. And you know what? All the best Turkish restaurants are in New York, and I'm really depressed because I love Turkish food. Whenever I go to Manhattan, that's the first thing I do is I run to a Turkish restaurant because it's so good. There are none here. None. Not a single Turkish restaurant anywhere in LA. It's impossible to find. So upsetting. But we eat Lebanese often enough that when people ask my daughter what her favorite food is, and they're expecting to hear something like, chicken strips or mac and cheese or pizza, she will always say Lebanese. Lebanese.
Oh, Baba
And people
Ganoush.
look at her like, what kind of who are you people? You're weird. The Pension Gamble, another Frontline documentary, is really, really good. And the issue here is one that we're probably all aware of, which is that states have given their employees, especially teachers, all kinds of pension guarantees that they now can't fulfill. So they don't know. They all really were very overly optimistic in the good times and said, "Oh yeah, sure, we can give you, $270,000 a year when you turn 65." And now suddenly the states are going bankrupt and they got no money for the pensions. And all these workers are thinking, "But you promised.
Yeah.
You promised. I'm going to hold you to it. I don't care what you got to do. You owe me a pension."
You're going to have to sell something.
It's a problem. So anyway, it does get into some of the solutions. I'm not sure any of them are really that helpful. Native America, First Peoples, Ancient Civilizations, Enduring Cultures. This is nice. I've seen, it's not brilliant. It's 4 episodes that specifically get into fact and fiction and myth and reality about Native American tribes and history, and it's warts and all, and there's a lot of stuff here that's pretty ugly, and a lot of stuff that's a little bit embellished and whatnot. I think there are better documentaries on the subject of the Native American experience and history, but this is not bad. Ancient Invisible Cities, Athens, Cairo, and Istanbul, collaboration with the fabulous BBC. And I just love archaeology and architecture, and this is right down the middle of that. This is a journey with archaeologist Darius Arya, and he just goes to these 3 amazing cities and takes you on a tour of extremely new technology 3D scans so that you can see what the cities used to be, sort of recreates the past in a really, really fascinating way. And it's great. The 3D imaging here is it's terrific. It's really, really fascinating. So this is high tech and old world meeting in a really cool way. 3 more here from PBS. Shakespeare Uncovered, Series 3. This is a great series. And all this does is just gets behind, these are the backstories of Shakespearean plays. There are 6 films here. Much Ado About Nothing, Merchant of Venice, Measure for Measure, Julius Caesar, Richard III, and The Winter's Tale. And you just have these. Every one of these has a different host. Like Helen Hunt, for example, hosts Much Ado About Nothing. Brian Cox hosts Julius Caesar. Murray Abraham hosts The Merchant of Venice, and you are basically given a very tender college level lecture on why these are important, and you don't even know that you're being taught. Trump's Showdown, another one from Frontline. People are probably thinking, which one? This has nothing to do with the shutdown, which happened all after this was made. No, this is all about Robert Mueller and Russia and so forth, and of course that is far from over. But this is sort of this is a lead-in doc.
Everything up to date.
Up to now, up to date. So it'll obviously have a sequel at some point. I don't know why they. I don't know why they made it, to be honest.
No, just wait till the story's over.
Frontline, I guess, had a few spare weeks to do something. And then the last one here is The Woman in the Iron Coffin: The Life of a Free Black Woman in 19th Century New York.
Wow.
This is part of the Secrets of the Dead series. And this is really, really interesting because it goes back to 2001 when there were some construction workers in New York who discovered in this lot in Queens, they discovered a woman's remains and had no idea who she was, and they thought that this was just like somebody that had recently been killed, and calling the cops and the whole thing. And after they analyzed that, and you remember this, right? Like this was in a basement, and everybody thought, "Oh my gosh, the people who lived in this house, they killed somebody," and it was a whole to do. And then they looked at it and they found out that this woman had died like 80 years earlier.
Yeah.
Like, this had nothing, this was not a murder. There's a whole story that goes to this. And so Secrets of the Dead goes into the secrets of the woman in the iron coffin. And there are more secrets here than there are with the cathedrals, believe me. It's really, really, really interesting. And it opens up a whole window on something we don't often talk about, which is that And 12 Years a Slave got into this a little bit, but we don't often talk about the fact, we think of those first 2/3, or the first almost half of the first American century, 70 some years, 80 some years after the Declaration of Independence. that's the era of slavery, and we forget half the country had free blacks. They were free in half the country.
Yeah, that's why they called it the Mason-Dixon line.
Yeah.
And you wanted to be north of it.
But no one ever talks about what their lives were like.
Which of course, we were talking to someone the other day, and they were talking about the Harvard University, and they mentioned some black. It was the W.B. Du Bois. I don't know. It predated Du Bois, but they said, "Oh, he went to Harvard." There were always black students at Harvard.
That's a funny thing too. And you tell me if you ever get any of this. But I remember once when I was a kid. My father came from Kentucky, and I remember my father talking to. Gosh, were we at a hardware store or something? Anyway, my father grew up basically in Reconstruction, the late Reconstruction South. Knew a lot of freed slaves, and we were talking to a black guy at like a hardware store. This is maybe early 1970s, and it was. I'd always heard my father's stories of the South and, slavery and freed slaves and so forth. And this guy said, he goes, the most vexing thing is when people meet you and they automatically assume that because you're black and American,
you have some lineage to the South.
You have some lineage to slavery. He said, my great-grandfather was a professional wrestler in New England in like 1850 or whatever it was. He was a professional wrestler and did very, very well at it. And he came to the United States voluntarily. He came, I think he came from the Caribbean, There's a whole thing, and he says, and people just automatically meet you and they assume, oh, your grandfather was a slave, your great grandfather was a slave, I'm so sorry, And it's like, no, stop it. Some of us are descended from free people.
One of the first theaters established in the United States of America, actual theaters meant for the 1817.
Yeah,
black dude. Yeah. He had been on a ship, a stevedore. He had been a stevedore on a ship. He had finished up that, bought a house in Lower Manhattan, and started putting on Shakespearean plays.
It's fascinating.
So these things we think.
That's what's great about this. Is that it gets into a lot of that. The Woman in the Iron Coffin installment of Secrets of the Dead from PBS, really fascinating.
Yeah. Well, somebody made new movies. And I got a few new movies. I got Slice in my hand, Chance the Rapper, and Zazie Beetz in this perfectly goofy, terrible movie, right? And Zazie, I adore her. Of course, we know her from Deadpool 2 and from Atlanta.
Yeah.
And Chance the Rapper has been on a whole bunch of records with Donnell Glover.
Yeah.
And the guy who directed this movie, a guy named Austin Veasley.
Yeah.
Austin has directed both a lot of Chance the Rapper videos and a lot of Donnell Glover or Childish Gambino videos. Ball that all up together and you get yourself a big old stank-ass movie. Starring all of these people in a movie that makes no sense. It's about some town someplace where ghosts are ordinary and just sort of still walking around and doing stuff. And somebody is murdering people and they're turning back up as ghosts, but nobody can figure out who's killing them. And anyway, Zazie is fantastic. I adore her. I'll watch her do anything, anywhere, even in a dumbass Austin Veasley movie. Okay, Austin.
I'm gonna spare you this next one. Benchwarmers 2, Breaking Balls, with Chris Klein and John Lovitz. That's all you need to know. Yeah. They made another Benchwarmers movie, and it's got John Lovitz in it, and that's the only thing that's good about it is John Lovitz. Oh,
interesting. Second film after his first film, Luca, who made the beautiful movie last year.
Yes.
This year, a remake of Suspiria, of Dario Argento's Suspiria, rewrote it.
With an extra hour.
Yeah, an extra hour.
Suspiria is about 90 minutes long. This thing's 2.5 hours.
Dakota Johnson, Tilda Swinton. The wonderful thing in the movie is Dakota Johnson. The movie, I don't need this movie, but then again, I'm not a Giallo guy.
Yeah,
right?
see,
I didn't like this in 1972 when he did it the first time.
We saw this together, and I had the same reaction. I thought, this is just really overwrought tribute to a movie that I didn't like the first time, and I don't particularly like it the second time. However, people who love the original really love this
movie, and some folks were making allusions between this and the Me Too movement. A coven of witches masquerading as a dance troupe. involved in a battle to see who will be the next master of the Coven of Witches. And when they dance, this is one of their ways of invoking powers. This particular character, anyway, there's this gruesome scene in it. And I got to tell you, after that scene, I was done with the movie.
Yeah, I agree.
Didn't need to see any more special features, the making of Suspiria, this, that, and the other thing. But if it's in your wheelhouse. It's in your wheelhouse. We thought we were going to be talking about Boy Erased here at this Academy Awards season, but as you say, this is a movie with Lucas Hedges, who was nominated for an Academy Award just what was it, a year or two ago?
Yep.
Manchester by the Sea performance. Nicole Kidman, Russell Crowe, a couple of heavy hitters.
Yeah.
As far as that goes, I think Nicole's people might have told her, you're probably going to get 2 nominations for this and Destroy It.
Yeah, and she got none.
Neither. This is a perfectly decent movie, written and directed by Joel Edgerton, the acting Joel Edgerton that you all know. Loosely based on a true story of a young man,
and he's in it too.
And he's in it. Yeah, he's playing. Who's sent to de-gayetization camp, whatever the hell they call it. Yeah. Russell Crowe, his pastor father. All of that loosely based on a true story. Fairly decent movie, but it didn't penetrate the zeitgeist.
It wears its emotions and its intentions a little too bravely on its sleeve, which again, I normally think that is a liability, but then again, so does Green Book.
Yeah, but a bunch of nominations.
So,
but what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Blood Brothers. This is a fairly decent little action movie. Most interesting thing in it is a hip hop cat named Fetty Wap is in the cast. Yeah. So if you listen to a lot of Fetty Wap hip hop, you're going to kind of dig this. Other than that, it's just a little hood gangster movie of no particular import.
I'll throw out Goosebumps 2. I'm not a huge fan of the whole Goosebumps phenomenon, but a lot of kids are. This thing just came and went. You get this also on Movies Anywhere. There's a little Movies Anywhere code on here, which is,
I kind of like that first one. I'll just go ahead and admit that I did.
You know what? I mean, it's fine for kids. Kids will enjoy this. It's got the effects and the monsters and the scares, but it's not too scary.
They based that one all around Halloween. And the thing that was irritating about it is that none of the actual creatures from Goosebumps, Goosebumps series, show up in that movie.
No, none.
And then Jack Black shows up in the last 3 minutes, casts some kind of a stupid spell, the movie's over.
Yeah, it's kind of silly, but there are some laughs in here. There are a few things that are fun. Ken Jeong shows up in here, and he's always good for a yuck or two. So there it is,
Dr. Ken Jeong.
And by the way, we didn't say too much. The Crazy Rich Asians got completely shut out of the Oscars, which is very upsetting.
And you had an interesting theory about it, and actually, I have to agree with you.
We'll cover more on that in the future.
On
a future show, we'll get into that.
The Nutcracker and then the Four Realms, a sort of Nutcracker sweet movie that is
just bombed.
Really just terrible. Lasse Hallström and Joe Johnson co-directing.
Yeah,
I'm figuring.
Lasse Hallström had a medical procedure at some point and couldn't come back to finish the film, as I understand it. So they went and got Joe Johnston to handle it.
How do you get from? There was a lot of special effects.
That's what it was, and they wanted somebody who was effects savvy, which Lasse isn't. So.
Yeah. Well, anyway, it didn't save the movie.
No,
at all.
My daughter enjoyed it. But I don't know that she wants to
really?
see it again.
Because to me, even in that context, I thought it would have been too scary.
We thought that too with the giant, the big rat creature thing and the tree. Yeah, okay. We did, and she was fine with it. And truly, my wife had her hand ready to cover her eyes at the scary part. Just reflexes at the ready. And she did it, and then Hero pushes her hand away. She's like, "No, I'm good."
Yeah,
I'm like, all right.
Yeah, okay.
There we go.
Tough little girls. You just never know. Anyway, not particularly fancy. A few special features, of course, on that. The Wife. Now, interestingly, Glenn Close,
Oscar nominated for this.
Won a Golden Globe, I believe.
Yeah,
an Oscar nominated. I gotta tell you, I don't see it.
And she tied for the Critics' Choice Award too.
She did. I don't know what that is. Maybe it's a generational thing. Glenn Close, Jonathan Pryce, Christian Slater. She plays the wife of a guy who gets nominated. For what is it, a Nobel Prize or something?
Yeah.
And he's like this real, piece. He's a real piece, and this just makes him all the much worse. And it's all about the long-suffering wife and how she eventually pivots all of that around. It says right on the box here, though, our Pete Hammond, or Glenn Close delivers an Oscar-worthy performance.
Well, Pete occasionally gets it right. Not to. Well, here's a little spoiler. So again, turn the show off for like 5 or 6 seconds if you don't want the spoiler. So the whole deal is that basically she is responsible for his success. She's the real writer. Now there have been a few movies with that theme centered around some actual Colette very much, which also came out this year, centered around that theme. And there are a number of real life situations where what was the Tim Burton film
with
about
painter.
the artist?
The artist,
right. Sad Eyes, or Big Eyes.
Amy Adams.
So this theme has showed up a few times. It's always timely. It's always interesting. I just don't think this one is all that interesting.
Yeah, for one thing, it's mostly kind of made up.
Yeah.
Let the Corpses In is a heist movie. A team of guys go out and steal some gold. They have this gold. They have to hide it in their place, and other people come looking for it. Action. All kinds of stuff. Neat movie in that context. French film. Bonus features include audio commentary with film critic Alexandria Heller-Nicholas.
Nice.
Good stuff.
Good.
Do you know this film? I didn't see this one.
Oh, yeah. Henri. For the sake of love and justice. This is just a kind of a junky, like a junky kind of straight to the video thing, but it's significant because it was something that Burt Reynolds did before he passed. So somebody dug this out and said, let's get this out. Monarch has released it. I think they needed to release it as a tribute to Burt. It's not significant. He's not significant in it. It's also got, Eric Roberts, which is a clear giveaway that this thing is just, thrown together. Robert Lasardo, who gets his name above the title for the first time in 30 years. So, I mean, it's there's nothing terribly significant about this. It's like a small town sheriff and family dispute thing, and it's vigilante justice. It's not terribly interesting, but it's nice to see Burt Reynolds always now that he's gone from
had something to do. Are we pressing forward? Are you going to knock something out?
Yeah, let's go forward onto classic movies here in the excuse me, little time that we have left. Twilight Time. Got 4 this month from Twilight Time. They are all really interesting. Twilight Time still really picks interesting stuff. And you've got to go to screenarchives.com or twilighttimemovies.com to get these. That's where you get these new, only at those 2 sites. Richard Gere and Vanessa Redgrave made a movie called Yanks once upon a time in the late 70s when Richard Gere was young and just kind of getting started.
Just after being that Calvin Klein model.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I think the billboards were still up.
And Malick, Malick turned him into a bit of a mythic figure as well. So you've got a very, very young Richard Gere and a not so young Vanessa Redgrave, but they are very, very good in Yanks, which was directed by John Schlesinger, who had won Best Picture and Best Director just a decade earlier for Midnight Cowboy. And this all takes place in the north of England during World War II. And it's effectively a pre-D-Day sociological study of what happens when American troops arrive in England on the eve of D-Day and how what transpires. And obviously some of these guys aren't going to come back. And is there a future? And there's some romance and whatnot. So it's got a lot of really interesting stuff that endures. A wonderful, wonderful score by Richard Rodney Bennett, which you can listen to as an isolated track on this. Also an audio commentary with actor Chick Venera and film historians Julie Kergo and Nick Redman, who is one of the principals in Twilight Time. But I do think in some ways the film is a little tiny bit dated. William Devane is in this as well. He's very, very, very good. It's still good, but it's not as good as it was at the time. Untamed from 1955, pretty decent Western. Richard Egan, good solid guy. Susan Hayward, Tyrone Power, Agnes Moorehead. It's a good cast.
Yeah.
It's an aging Tyrone Power, I should point out at this point. He doesn't quite have what he used to have, and Susan Hayward is wonderful. She never ages. Directed by Henry King. Good workman-like movie all around. The only thing that makes this significant is it's a Western set in South Africa. So in every other way, it's a classic American Western, but because it takes place in South Africa and instead of Indians, you got Zulu warriors, it's supposed to be a little bit unique. But the bottom line is, it's Still a Western.
Yeah.
Still basically that movie. The Return of Frank James is not bad, actually. A lot of Jesse James movies made, including one starring Tyrone Power. But this one stars Henry Fonda, and it's focusing on Frank James, and it takes a slightly different angle on the Jesse James and younger gang. And John Carradine is in this, has a really, really nice turn. Gene Tierney is fetching as can be. And the thing that is most interesting about this is that it was directed by Fritz Lang, who was pulled over by Daryl Zanuck at one point in the 1940s. And this is 1940. And it's the first Western that Fritz Lang ever made, and it's also the first film he ever did in color, and it's quite a number. So it's worth checking out. It's a really, really interesting movie. And then the last one here from Twilight Time is Beat the Devil, which has been one of those public domain things forever. Crappy versions of this have shown up on all kinds of really bad DVDs for 20 years. This is a John Huston film from 1953. This looks gorgeous. This is the only version to get. It's on Blu-ray. It is beautiful. They've done a real number with this. There's an audio commentary with Lem Dobbs, Julie Kirgo, and Nick Redman. Lem Dobbs.
Love Lem Dobbs.
Love Lem. Great screenwriter. And then the original trailer and a thing, Alexander Cockburn Beat the Devil. This is a good movie. And it's even better when you see it presented the way that it's supposed to be presented. Jennifer Jones, Gina and Lola Bridget, Humphrey Bogart, Peter Lorre. I mean, come on, it's absolutely brilliant, and it is effectively one of the earliest kind of caper comedies. One of the early. I don't want to call it a spoof, but it kind of does sort of spoof the World War II spy genre. So it's not spoof. It's too early to spoof James Bond because we don't have James Bond movies yet. But World War II spy movies were a real big thing in the 40s, and this sort of. In 1953, we're able to breathe a little bit and just say, okay, let's kind of take the air out of this thing. All the U-boats and Nazis and everything else. So it's a lot of fun. And Gina Lola Bridget had never aged. She was amazing.
Oh, Gina Lola.
Whoa.
Want to do some of these?
Let's do some shout stuff.
Some shout stuff. Screamers. I have to tell you, I rather enjoyed Screamers from 1995. This would have been after Peter Weller had been RoboCop already.
Yeah.
And was and after his Buckaroo Banzai period too. If you come to think of it, this is directed by Christian Duguay, who also directed The Art of War, starring Wesley Snipes. If I'm not mistaken.
No kidding.
This is just one of those movies that was late on the heels of the big sort of space opera type movies, space. Science fiction type movies. 2078. These two organizations are at war. One company has created these man-made things called screamers. They're under the sand.
Oh yeah, I remember this
movie. Come swimming. The thing about a screamer, it comes screaming at you, it whacks you all up to pieces, then it cleans up its own mess. That's the idea of what the screamer does.
This came after Tremors, didn't it?
After Tremors.
Yeah,
with the big worm and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So, anyway, interview with the director and a couple other people. This was a fun movie. Peter Weller made a few of those before he started doing all kinds of serious stuff. Screamers. Right there. Plague of the Zombies, 1966, which is just a straight-ahead zombie movie. A little village in Cornwall. People seem to be falling ill all over the place, and then they start coming back, and the professor figures out there must be some voodoo involved. Set in the late 1860s, perfectly decent. Little sort of British zombie movie. All kinds of special features on it, which is a lot of fun. Audio commentaries with the filmmakers and film historian Steve Harberman and whatnot. Neat stuff there. Plague of the Zombies. When Harry Met Sally.
Fine. You know what? This is
30th anniversary edition.
This came out in a really crappy straight to Blu-ray edition, like I don't know, 2-3 years ago. And I remember I tried to get it for us at the time, and they just said, "Why?" Because it's a classic.
Yeah.
Everybody's seen it. I just hate it when the studios have no value for their own libraries.
And thus Shout
is a Shout Select title. Yeah.
And they figured out what to do. A new interview with Rob Reiner and Billy Crystal. 4K scan of the original Camera Naked. Audio commentary with Rob and Nora Ephron. We lost Nora not too long ago, if I'm not mistaken, and Billy Crystal.
We still have Nancy Myers.
Yeah.
Who's she's kind of like Nora.
Yeah. It's kind of vintage featurettes, deleted scenes. Look, this is a classic film that has it sort of got made and came out and became a classic within our lifetimes.
Yeah.
And it's a wonderful movie.
I
Billy
love
Crystal
it.
and
Still
Meg
love it.
Ryan meet in college at the end of college and drive across country and go on this long relationship before they finally realize that they're meant for each other.
I actually once did the cherry pit thing in someone's car. They didn't get it. You know, you just spit it against the window. I'll roll down the window. Didn't get it. They thought I was an idiot. I was like, "Don't you know I just like spit a thing on your window to make a joke, and you didn't appreciate it because you haven't seen the movie. What's wrong with you?"
Pathetic people. It's ridiculous. Anyway, wonderful movie. I can watch this movie forever. One of me and my wife's favorite movies. 30th anniversary edition, When Harry Met Sally. I remember doing the junket for the original Urban Legends film.
Gosh.
Here's the collector's edition 2-disc set. I think, because I'm not mistaken, I think this film might have preceded or it might have been after the Scream films. So, one of the early films that were all kind of meta about what was going on in the horror film. Today we have the Happy Death Day to You films,
right?
Which are just another leg of the same sort of genre. Anyway, are the Urban Legends coming true? A couple of years later, they knocked off Urban Legends Final Cut. Even Mendez, a young and still kind of chubby Anthony Anderson in that movie. Lots of special effects here, making up featurettes, interviews with the actors. Look, if you're into the Urban Legend films, you might as well get them both, Urban Legends and Urban Legends Final Cut. The first one, by the way, 1998.
Oh, my gosh.
I also did the junket, believe it or not, for Sleepwalkers 1992. I did this junket for just about every Stephen King adaptation, which is kind of nutty. Sleepwalkers.
That was a nutty movie.
That was a nutty movie from a nutty book about these people who were like a part human, part cat or tiger. They would transform at night. It was so crazy. Mick Garris film. Yeah, you know a lot of those films.
Oh, that's right. What happened to him?
Good question. What the hell did happen to Mick? Back in the day, he was banging around.
He knocked a lot of them out.
1992. Machin Amick was in this film.
Oh yeah, before Twin Peaks.
When she was still selling Noxzema. Yeah, he did a couple of Critters movies, if I'm not mistaken.
Let me knock out a few Severin titles here. We've got Severin does a lot of great exploitation stuff, and they've got a really great bunch this time. So All the Colors of the Dark is this weird kind of very disturbing quasi-Euroshock giallo movie from 1972, directed by Sergio Martino. All the Colors of the Dark. It's basically, a haunted, terrorized woman movie with Edwidge Fenech, who previously starred in Strip Nude for Your Killer, which I haven't seen. I have no idea, but I'd assume that her performance is roughly the same. She just screams a lot, and that's kind of it. But anyway, the reason to see this is because it has a really great score. The score is creepier than the movie. The score is written by a composer named Bruno Nicolai, some Italian guy I never heard of. But they completely restored this thing. There's an audio commentary on it with Kat Ellinger, who wrote the Sergio Martino book, literally. Interviews galore with everybody, including Sergio Martino. And then there is also All the Colors of Giallo, which is not an actual standalone movie. This is effectively a compilation of trailers. There's a documentary there are 3 discs, 3 Blu-ray discs. The first one is a feature-length documentary by Federico Cadeo about giallo, and then there are just hundreds of trailers, more than you can count, and they get kind of it gets a little bit tedious at a certain point, but it's still a lot of fun, and it's very, very funny. Anyway, that's most of that is on disc 2, and then the third disc is a CD with all this wild music on it. We've also got Mondo Freudo and Mondo Bizarro. Now, if you don't know anything about the Mondo films, you need to. The Mondo films are kind of like the exploitation version of the Cinerama movies. They are travel logs of the weirdest stuff that they can possibly find. And Lee Frost and Bob Cressy who were one of these early exploitation teams, kind of like Sam Arkoff and Arkoff and Nicholson and a bunch of these others. They were all teams. Lee Frost and Bob Cressy were one of the sort of the more careless and skeezy of these teams. And they're the ones that put together the Mondo genre the first time around. And it's, like Faces of Death is a Mondo film that more recent generations are probably a little bit familiar with. So anyway, Mondo Freudo is just all about, it's everything from stripping to drugs to, weird sadomasochistic stuff. And, homosexuality plays a big part in this because that was considered shocking at the time. And a lot of it is a little bit staged. Like there's an Arab sex slave auction that was clearly staged somewhere here in LA, and it's really lame. But anyway, it's good trash. It's good retro trash, and people will enjoy it if you enjoy trash. That is Skinner. Another Severin Blu-ray title. This is from 1993, sort of a later exploitation thing, but it's a little bit like what Tim was just talking about with Screamers. It's kind of in that same general vein. And the only reason that it's really worth watching is because it has a performance by Ted Raimi, the brother of Sam Raimi, who rarely shows up in anything anymore.
Yeah. He's thrown around Hercules a lot.
But Ted Raimi is in this. And he plays the title character, Dennis Skinner, who is basically the same thing as Buffalo Bill in Silence of the Lambs, except Silence of the Lambs around about this same time. I think the year before. Silence of the Lambs was what, 91?
Yeah.
So it's 2 years earlier. It won Best Picture. Ted Raimi didn't win anything for this. But he that's what he does. He makes flesh suits. So, and what a tailor he is. And then we've got the last two here. Jack the Ripper. Oh my goodness, Jack the Ripper. Has nothing to do with history whatsoever. This is two different versions of this movie, the UK and the US versions. This was made in 1959. It is not even an hour and a half long. It's like about 80 minutes long. And this is a really, really bad movie produced by Joseph E. Levine, who was one of those schlockmeisters at the time. And but somehow it has endured for all kinds of bizarre, unusual reasons. And it's gory and it's shocking. It's not very good. It's got a lot of extra stuff in it, commentary material and alternate takes and interviews. And why this movie survives is a bit of a mystery, but they do kind of get to the bottom of it. And then Echo and the Forbidden. The tagline is great. An incredible orgy of sights and sounds. This is also a Bob Cressy and Lee Frost exploitation title. And it's effectively a Mondo film, but it's one of the lesser Mondo films. It's just all kind of S&M stuff and piercing and it's nasty stuff. It's kind of gross. And watch this one not if you like Mondo films, but only if you're a little bit sadistic. But it's nasty, and Echo is these are two different films separately. Echo is 99 minutes. Forbidden is just kind of like outtakes from Echo that they try to turn into another movie for the most part. And there you go. It's Echo and the Forbidden.
Interesting stuff. Let's see. Let's go over here and knock out a few of these. Brian De Palma's Obsession, Brian De Palma film. Which actually got a couple of great reviews way back in the day from Liz Smith when it first came out.
I love Obsession.
It's a really neat movie. young John Lithgow in the movie, Genevieve Bujold, Cliff Robertson, Brian De Palma doing probably some of his best Alfred Hitchcock impersonations that he's done over his career. Neat movie, special commentary, special features all over the place, including an audio commentary with Douglas Keasley, who made that film, Brian De Palma's Split Screen, a wonderful documentary. Interview with the producer of this film, and its editor Herb Litt. So all kinds of neat stuff on here, including ultimately an interview with Brian De Palma. His film Obsession from 1966, very early.
That was late 60s.
Very
For some
early.
reason, I always think Obsession is like 1971. I don't know why.
A little bit later there.
Yeah.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Next Generation.
No, please no. No, we don't need another generation.
And by the way, this is all of interest because this is 1994.
Yeah.
So this is probably still the third or fourth.
Yeah.
In the chain of Texas, pun not intended there. That's terrible. I don't know why I did that. All kinds of special features on this film. If you're into the Texas Chainsaw, canon of films, you might as well toss this one in to your stacks there. 8mm.
I remember this.
Yeah, Joel Schumacher film. Back when Nick Cage was still sort of doing A-list movies, legitimate A-list movies.
Yeah.
This one was about a guy, and his 8mm. What's 8mm? Something horrible on the 8mm film. 8mm is kind of film, by the way, people.
It's trafficking in the idea that snuff films were real.
Yeah.
Which we know now they weren't, but at the time it was Joel Schumacher wanted. What happened to Joel? He hasn't directed a movie in forever.
No, with Tigerland, the Batman. Man, when would
he was the man for a minute, and then he just
the Batman.
Look
movie.
it up.
Anyway, interview with producer Joel Schumacher here, audio commentary with him as well. It was a creepy little movie. Young Joaquin Phoenix early in this movie, so it's a few things to offer from the old Joel Schumacher film. The Howling 3. I remember the first. These were werewolf movies.
Yeah.
Because we always have these sort of alternating periods between werewolf movies and vampire movies.
Yep.
This was during one of the werewolf periods. I remember thoroughly enjoying the original Howling film.
Yep.
With I think it was Albert Finney and if I'm not mistaken, the late Gregory Hines. Was in that movie, and that was actually a pretty neat movie. They were still using practical effects, kind of like American Werewolf in London, to make the people turn into werewolves. By the time we get to the Howling 3, they're still using some practical effects, but they're starting to use a little CGI, which is a little bit less fun for me.
Joel Schumacher turns 80 in August.
Oh, well, he was a set designer or dresser or something on Woody Allen films in the 60s.
Well,
or maybe the early 70s.
He was part of the Factory with Warhol.
With the Warhol, in the mid-60s. So, so is he retired, though? Does he have anything there?
Well, I'm looking here, I mean, he's just worked so much, but hold on. He has done nothing since... He did, Phantom of the Opera in 2004. Okay. And then he did The Number 23 in 2007, Blood Creek 2009, 12 in 2010, Trespass in 2011.
Trespass, I remember.
Nothing since.
2011.
Yeah. He's made nothing for 8 years.
But the last few were all still viable films. Not great movies, but they were still legit films.
Yeah. Phantom of the Opera was a big deal.
Yeah. That was the Gerard Butler, right?
Yeah.
Tobe Hooper's film... From 1995, The Mangler, horror mystery film, pretty
terrible.
Just it's a Tobe Hooper film. That whole group of guys. Yeah. Interesting. We were talking about Buffalo Bill a second ago from the Jodie Foster film. And how Ted Raimi played that character in that film. Ted Levine is in this film. Ted Levine is the actor who played Buffalo Bill in The Silence of the Lambs. So it's kind of funny that he's actually in this bad horror movie. This performance is probably what got him the part as Buffalo Bill a few years later in The Silence of the Lambs, 1995. Anyway, The Mangler there. Stallone in Cobra.
Oh,
dude, I remember. I saw this movie in theaters. This
was just so he and Bridget Nielsen were an item at the time, so they could make a movie and look hot together on a movie.
Yeah. And then unfortunately, that whole thing happened with the Red Sonja and her. But in any case, 1986. Look, this is the best thing about this movie. The tagline: "Crime is the disease. Meet the cure." Yeah, and you got Stallone standing there with that Uzi or whatever the hell it is wearing those sage. That's pretty cool. Again, all kinds of special features all over this thing. New 2K scan, this, that, and the other thing. Crime is Rambo, knocking it out.
Whatever.
10 to Midnight is a late life Charlie Bronson film from 1983. Lee J. Thompson directing. He's playing an LAPD detective. And he's looking for a guy who's been out there hacking and slashing ladies. So basically, he's just playing. He's doing a Clint Eastwood. He's playing a Dirty Harry. It's what he's doing. It's lots of special features again on this, including a 4K scan of the original cinema negative. Look, you can't really go wrong with a little bit of Charlie Bronson. This is a Yorm Goebbels film. Yes, Malcolm and Yorm Goebbels, they did what they did back in the day. Not the greatest work in the world, but Wilfred Brimley also walking around this movie.
We're going to wrap out with with 4 terrific Criterions. I mean, 4 really terrific Criterions, all totally different. One of them is Criterion continues to nab top-tier Alfred Hitchcock movies and put them out on Blu-ray. And one of them is Notorious.
Oh, Notorious.
So if you have a previous edition of Notorious, you can go ahead and just sell that sucker or chuck it or make a coaster of it or whatever. This is the one. It is absolutely spectacular. Notorious from 1946, one of the first major Hollywood films that had the Hitchcock stamp on it. Rebecca was basically a Selznick film, but Notorious really is a Hitchcock film. You can see where it's going. Cary Grant and Ingrid Bergman are both just classic. This is Cary Grant finally getting into his Hitchcock mode. He's done other stuff, romantic comedies before, but now Hitchcock found another gear in him. Ingrid Bergman, basically one of those classic brassy ice blondes that Hitchcock so adored, and does it better than anyone ever else. And Claude Rains, so fantastic. As a Nazi hiding out in the jungle, and it's just fantastic. This is a really, really sharp movie, and it's suspenseful, and it's just beautifully. You could map the way the camera work moves. It's choreographed like a great dance. Gigantic piles of extras here that in classic fashion. Audio commentaries that were originally recorded in 1990 and 2001 with Rudy Belmer and Alfred Hitchcock scholar Marion Keene. Interviews galore. There's a thing about the John Bailey, who's the president of the Academy right now, has a little thing on here on the cinematography. And a 2009 documentary that features Isabella Rossellini, the daughter of Ingrid Bergman, obviously, Peter Bogdanovich, Stephen Frears, Claude Chabrol, and a whole bunch of others talking about the film and its impact. There's some stuff on the storyboarding. I mean, it's amazing. This is really just look, get it. That's all I can say. In the Heat of the Night, the Best Picture winner of 1967, is an absolutely sterling film, still holds up. Really, really great. Norman Jewison did not win Best Director that year, but he did win Producer of Best Picture. And so he got his one and only Academy Award for In the Heat of the Night, which really kind of changed the American filmmaking landscape. It was the first film that really wrestled with racial issues right smack in the middle of the Civil Rights era, and it won Best Picture for it. Sidney Poitier and Rod Steiger just absolutely kill it. It was followed up by They Call Me Mr. Tibbs, which was not quite that great, but still a good film. And Haskell Wexler shot the hell out of this thing. I mean, it really did. It's just a fantastic movie. Again, loaded galore with extras. It's just, interviews and featurettes and documentaries. Quincy Jones' Breaking New Sound from 2008, all about the Quincy Jones soundtrack and the title song that was sung by Ray Charles. That's really, really good. Then we've got Mikey and Nicky. The very underrated Elaine May directed this superb film that starred Peter Falk and John Cassavetes in 1976. Elaine May would go on to be much maligned for Ishtar, very unfairly. She was previously part of a comedy act with Mike Nichols before they both became filmmakers, and they were hilarious. And then Mike Nichols went to have a very distinguished career, and Elaine May had a very difficult career. But this is a terrific film. It's a very unusual gangster movie that kind of lives in the shadows of the Godfather films and the Scorsese stuff that was coming of age in the 60s as well. But this is a beautiful transfer. Has new interviews on it with Julian Schlossberg and Joyce Van Patten, Richard Brody, Carrie Rickey. An interview from 1976 with Peter Falk is really, really good. It's a great film. Cassavetes has never been better as an actor, and Peter Falk is very unusual in it. So, yeah. And then the last one, 4 Months, 3 Weeks, and 2 Days by Cristian Mungiu.
Yeah.
This is the Romanian film from 2007 that absolutely ripped people apart. It won the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival. It's Mungiu's second feature. It is effectively the story of an abortion. And it is not a political film. It is just simply a film that basically analogizes that abortion to the political situation in Romania before and after after communism. The actor who plays the abortionist, Vlad Ivanov, received the supporting actor award from the LA Film Critics, and so deservedly. He is so chilling in this movie. I didn't want to get anywhere near him when you just look at the actor and you just think it was a little too real.
Yeah.
I realize you're an actor, but I'm not going to take my chances.
Yeah.
I don't want to be near you.
Can we interview Cristian for something like
It's 4 Months, 3 Weeks, and 2 Days is a tremendous movie. Absolutely a tremendous movie. It's must see. It is so tough to watch this movie. It is so difficult to watch, but it is such brilliant filmmaking. And I don't say that easily about Romanian movies because I can't stand Lazarescu and
the death of
police adjective and all the rest of those boring things.
I enjoyed both of those. You know what's neat about Mikey and Nicky? People are very familiar. Some people are familiar with the Meisner method of acting.
Yeah.
Sanford Meisner is in that movie.
That's right.
Yeah. So if you ever want to,
good.
Not Sanford can act. By the way, kid, he's really good.
Tim's Tidbits.
I know,
it's brilliant. It's great. It's fantastic. All right, thank you, everybody. We will be back next week, and hopefully with some more Oscar tidbits as we just let it all kind of percolate and sink in. Have a great week.